Hey, I'm Jess Puddister, and this is Walking the Walk, a podcast about climate action in Newfoundland and Labrador. The town of Paradise is a bedroom community of the city of St. John's. They've seen their population grow by 46% over the last 10 years alone. They're trying to keep up with the demands this growth has brought, while keeping sustainability and climate action top of mind. In this episode, Municipal Engineering Manager Tracy Goosney explains a number of pivots the town of Paradise has made since completing its corporate greenhouse gas inventory. One thing she realized was that emissions from solid waste and wastewater treatment represent the largest chunk of the town's carbon footprint. So she and the town decided to do something about it. Like a lot of other towns in Newfoundland, Paradise has had to find its own solution for municipal composting because regional systems don't exist yet. Generally speaking, community-scale composting would achieve the greatest reduction in emissions for Newfoundland municipalities. This is the direction we need to be going in. Hey Tracy, how's it going?
Oh, I'm good. How are you, Jess?
I'm good, thanks. It's a gorgeous morning out there.
Yeah, it's nice to get up with the sun.
Definitely, yeah. It's great to reconnect, since our days working together.
Yeah.
A few years back now.
Yeah, it's definitely been a few years. A lot's changed. But.
Definitely. So tell us about where you are now.
Yeah, so right now I'm the manager of engineering with the town of Paradise. I've been in this role now for a few years, probably 3 years now. Before that, I was the engineer with the town, and I've been with the town for about 6 years now. So it's a great place to be. The town of Paradise is definitely a growing community. And our work, everything that we're doing seems to reflect that and our fairly young demographic. And it's a very nice place to work.
That's so cool. So for our listeners who are not from Newfoundland, Labrador, can you give us a little bit of a understanding of where Paradise is and geographically how you guys are set up? The scene with respect to infrastructure.
Sure.
Paint a little picture for us.
Yeah, so the town of Paradise, we're right outside of the capital city of St. John's. We're a large town for Newfoundland. We have about 21,000 residents.
My goodness, I didn't realize it was that high at this point. Wow.
Yeah, it's we have a large population, and the growth over the past 10 years has just been astounding. But it's been, I know we are still growing, and we were at one point one of the fastest growing communities, this side of Quebec, like really fast.
Wow.
Yeah. And we're still continuing to grow. I mean, this year, we're still getting significant development come in. The key thing, of course, is that with fast growth, the infrastructure, trying to keep up with that growth, it's a struggle. It's the engineering department's main focus is to make sure that that we can keep up and have everybody happy. We mostly are a commuter town for St. John's. Mostly people work in town, and we're suburbs. But we are growing more of a commercial and industrial industries as well. So there's more of that popping up, and we're getting our own workforce, people who live and work in Paradise. So
very cool.
Yeah.
What do you think is the driving force behind that really intense growth rate?
I think personally, I feel like a lot of Newfoundlanders from rural Newfoundland moving to St. John's, they wanted a piece of land. They wanted to be able to build their own house. They didn't want to be right in the city, but they had to be close enough to work in the city. So I feel like that's how it started. And then I think now it's a lot of young families are here and they see that this is a family community with young people, and you go and buy a house in a subdivision where there's already kids running around the street. I mean, it's, as a mom myself, I have two children. There's definitely that draw, that pull.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So you guys participated in the T2050 project.
Yes.
With NIA and Fundamental Inc.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that experience was like, and how it applied specifically to Paradise?
So this was a great program. I wasn't really involved much in getting the funding. That was all handled by our economic development officer. Now she keeps her eye out for different funding programs to try to get certain projects going. So it all started with her, and she was in touch with NIA and Fundamentals and helped put together the application. But once it was awarded, myself, the manager of engineering, and then our engineer, Melissa Gale, we participated in the training. There was webinars and then some in-person training. And this funding program is very important for the town of Paradise because it speaks directly to one of our goals in our strategic plan. Our strategic plan speaks to striving for optimum energy efficiency, striving for a carbon neutral footprint of municipal operations. And our climate action plan that we developed through the program gave us the tools that we need to get there. And it was a great experience, the training itself, learning how we can get to that point to be carbon neutral, learning about different programs available, what we can do, the different, and then going through the actual process, hitting our milestones and doing our inventory. Doing the inventory was so invaluable because it's an eye-opener.
So Tracy, can you tell our audience what an inventory is?
Okay, so the greenhouse gas inventory broke down essentially all of the different areas that we are emitting greenhouse gases into the environment. And it quantified it. So we have it for 2018, which was part of our climate action plan. And then we did it for 2019 and 2020 as well. But essentially it went over all of our buildings and facilities, all of our power usage, our fleet, anything that, like any of the vehicles that directly burn fuel and emit it to the environment. Our streets and traffic signals, water and wastewater treatment. That is not even one that I would have even really thought about. But of course, treating our water and wastewater that's a significant emitter of greenhouse gases.
I bet a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, and I mean, going through this process and realizing that something that we can do to help is just to use less water. I mean, in Newfoundland, we have usually, not in the dead of summer, but usually, we have an abundance of water. We don't even think about it when we turn it on, right? But it's just the small things that you can do. I mean, turning off a tap when you're brushing your teeth doesn't seem like a lot, but if you have thousands of people not, turning off their taps when they're brushing their teeth, I mean, those small things can add up, right? So it's those things, and then our solid waste, of course. So all of the garbage that we use, that we put out to a landfill. So there's greenhouse gas emissions from that. So the number is significant. And it was going through the process and identifying all these areas. It was definitely a valuable exercise to go through that.
That's so cool. Yeah. And I'm curious, since you guys have done inventories for 3 consecutive years, have you seen change over that period of time? And keeping in mind as well that like you say, population's going up. So that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about these results as well.
Yeah. So Our numbers are generally staying the same. Our fleet went down slightly. Our lights, we're trying to put in LED lights and street lights and whatnot when we can. But our biggest change now has been our wastewater treatment plant. That was a project we've been upgrading it in 2018, and we just started running it last year. So that is a big energy sink. So it went up in 2020 because of that. However, one thing that we are doing is when you treat wastewater, of course, you have byproduct. We call it sludge. And usually, sometimes that goes to a landfill, where obviously dumping it into a landfill is doing bad for the environment. But one thing that we're trying to do is composting that so it can be reused and it can make good compost. So we're working with our friends at Parties, and we're trying to right now we're giving it to them to compost, and hopefully in the future they'll be able to use that once it gets to a good, settles to a good material, I guess.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I did not know that was happening so close to where I live. Man, I hope St. John's can start doing that soon too, hopefully. That's super cool.
It's a big undertaking, and I know St. John's, their plant is way bigger, because part of our wastewater, of course, goes to Riverhead, so we do contribute to that one as well. Part of it goes down to, we have our own wastewater treatment plant, but that only treats part of our sewage. So Riverhead is such a huge facility. In order to compost that, it would require a big composting facility, which we don't have. It's something that we're interested in looking at, a regional composting facility where we can take, because of course, and I'm maybe going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but
no, this is great.
But of course, as more and more communities in Newfoundland upgrade their wastewater treatment facilities to meet the federal regulations, more and more communities are going to have this sludge problem to take care of.
Absolutely.
So a regional facility is definitely something that I'm interested in, and I'm trying to bring up and bring further down the line to see if it's something that can be done. As of right now, there's no plans to do it, but there is definitely going to be the need for it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And is there any other towns that you know of in the province who are doing this? Or are you guys the first?
So I know Riverhead, they take their sludge out to Robin Hood Bay. They just
This is in St. John's, just for context.
Yes, Riverhead facilities in St. John's. So they handle St. John's, Mount Pearl, and it goes to a landfill. I'm not entirely sure what other communities are doing, because we've looked around trying to find things to do with our sludge that we had before we engaged Parties to compost it for us, and it was very unclear. I get the feeling a lot of other communities are either landfilling it or they just don't have the treatment, because we are very, very much behind on those federal regulations.
Absolutely.
Meeting those federal regulations, I should say. Anyway.
No, for sure. Yeah, we talked about those in a couple of the other episodes. I know the town of Bayvert is struggling with that too.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't know if I expected to get excited about wastewater sludge today, but here we are.
Oh, I know. It's sadly becoming a passion of mine.
That's great.
It's not a very glamorous field, but it's interesting, and it's definitely a good field to get into for if there's any teenagers or anybody listening. Municipal engineering is definitely a field that's always going to be needed, and
oh my goodness, and so applicable to everyone's daily needs.
Oh yes.
And such a huge front in terms of responding meaningfully to climate change. Right. You're saying, the carbon footprint of dealing with wastewater is really substantial.
Yeah.
So if we can break down those organic materials in the presence of oxygen, then that means that the carbon footprint's going to be so much lower.
Right.
And we're going to be producing CO2 rather than methane, which is a much lower impact
Right.
gas.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool. I'm curious about some of the other goals that you were talking about in the strategy. I know
Yeah.
you guys were looking at getting solar streetlights.
So we're getting not street lights, but solar lights for our Paradise Park. So that was the project.
Okay.
So part of this project was a capital project. And so we got funding to put in solar lights up at Paradise Park, which is the arena and a emergency warming shelter for our town. So that it was a big plus for us, having those solar lights, so that if there was an outage, we could have like the warming center area lit. We wouldn't have to worry about that going down. So yeah,
Right on.
yeah. So we have the lights, and we're looking at hoping to get them installed now, sometime this summer or fall. That's the plan.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just like, I mean, thinking about kind of the theme here in terms of like infrastructure choices and getting creative with respect to infrastructure, I'm thinking like solar streetlights have got to be more cost effective than traditionally what you would do in terms of trenching and cabling and
Yeah.
electricity bills and with, traditional streetlights.
Yeah.
Is that true?
It seems to be so. I mean, like even we don't need an electrical design. We don't need to engage, to get those permits. We don't have to worry about any underground infrastructure related to it. And of course, the energy costs, we're not paying for that. So, I mean, it definitely is a cost-effective solution. And these lights are from, a local supplier.
Really?
No, I shouldn't say that. They're not locally made, but there is a local distributor, is what I mean to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's still super cool, though.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so the lights come from, I think, BC, but yeah.
Right. So they're still Canadian made.
Yeah, so we're quite pleased with that, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Paradise Park will be like now once we get the lights installed.
I find it so interesting how so many, solutions that contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation end up saving money.
Yeah.
Right up front and over the long term. Like, it's just kind of a no-brainer.
Right. Right.
It makes a lot of sense, I think.
Yeah, we have some opportunity. We're doing an opportunity assessment now. We have a company doing this opportunity assessment to see if there's any other further things that we can do to save energy and essentially save money down the road as well. So that's interesting too. That's ongoing now.
Did I hear anything about, recycling policy stuff? Is there anything like that going on?
So our public works department are always looking at different initiatives to try to increase the percentage of people recycling, to increase the uptake of that. I don't have any details on anything that they're doing, but I do know that they're discussing options for this year on ways to increase recycling. Because of course, when you look at the community waste number in our greenhouse gas inventory, it's huge.
Yeah.
A lot of that is, so there's a difference between, like, of course, our corporate emissions and then the community emissions. So our corporate are stuff that we do ourselves in-house. So all the waste that we produce in-house would be part of our corporate. The community obviously would be the town of Paradise as a whole. But it's included in our greenhouse gas emissions because, of course, we collect that. We landfill it. We can change. We can. What's the word I'm looking for? We can help reduce that number, and there's a lot of stuff we can do to influence that number, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
So, Yeah, so I was just going to say our fleet is also another large one. We do have electric vehicle charging station up at our arena. Our arena was built as a LEED facility. So we do have electric vehicle charging station up there, and we're also looking at getting some more electric vehicle charging stations down here at Town Hall. We applied with Newfoundland Power to one of their programs to get some installed. Haven't heard back yet, but if that falls through, then we'll look at other opportunities to get some electric vehicles charging stations for, employees, but also the public to use as well. So, yeah.
That's so great. I'm so happy to see this kind of thing happening more and more across the province, and people having options, and
Yeah.
the services they need in order to make a different choice, like buying an electric car,
Yeah.
and supporting, a municipal fleet
Yeah.
with that switchover as well. That's great.
Yeah.
Tracy, is there anything going on the public education front over on Paradise as a result of the project?
We have not yet. We've made our climate action plan available online for people
that's
to
great.
review. We are in discussions with communications on how we can get that message out there about the town's inventory and what we are proposing to do. And I know, like I said before, the community waste one, Public Works are looking at different communication rollouts and whatnot they can do to increase awareness. And but in terms of like the specific goals and whatnot, we haven't gotten there yet. And it's of course, and it's been a tough couple of years with COVID and whatnot.
Well,
Everybody
we've had a global pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's some of these other things have fallen by the wayside, but we're picking them up again now, and we're moving forward, and hopefully we'll get this. We'll meet our goals. Net zero by 2050. It's certainly a challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. But, the first step is having the information of that baseline, which you guys now have.
Yeah.
And then chunking out that work over a period of time. I don't know. It sounds like you have a great team and a great community.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've definitely got high hopes for Paradise.
Well, I feel like our community is more aware of climate change and the effects. I mean, we have a younger community, families with younger children. People are thinking more about the future that they're leaving for their children, right? So I know I am, and my 10-year-old daughter doesn't let me forget. All the environmental. She's a little environmentalist, so it's great to see, and I love it. But yeah, they don't let you forget it.
And nor should they.
No, absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for the chat today, Tracy. I learned a lot, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. No, well, thank you for arranging this, and to Fundamentals and Nia. This was a great opportunity. Me and Melissa learned a lot, and we're bringing it back to our operations, and hopefully we can get some of these projects going in the next few years.
That's marvelous. Yep. I'll be watching in anticipation and excitement.
Yes. Perfect.
That's our episode this week. It was produced by Luke Quinton of Electric Ocean and me, Jess Puddister. Thanks to Tracy Goosney, our guest, and Ashley Smith, Managing Director of Fundamental Inc. Our theme music is Visions of This Earth Before Our Time by Botany, courtesy Western Vinyl. This project was made possible through a grant from the T2050 initiative in partnership with the Newfoundland and Labrador Environmental Industries Association. Transition 2050 initiative is offered through the Municipalities for Climate Innovation program, which is delivered by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and funded by the Government of Canada. This initiative contributes to the FCM ICLEI Partners for Climate Protection program to help municipalities reduce greenhouse gas emissions and take action on climate change. PCP is a partnership between FCM and ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability.